One of the understand One of the understandings that most delights me is that we teach from the radiance of our own discovery. It's really, really true that there's all sorts of skills we build, but the real aliveness, what makes it a transmission, and you've touched this, you know this in your own experience, and you'll find it more and more with others, is it's an inside-out aliveness about it. There's a story I share often, some of you are familiar with, and Jack shares it also, that to me has the metaphor that we're perhaps most communicating. And back in 1957, a highway was being built through Bangkok. So one monastery had to relocate, and it meant they had to relocate this huge clay Buddha, very big, heavy Buddha, to a new spot. So as the crane began to lift the giant idol, the weight of it was so tremendous it began to crack. And what's more, there was a lot of rain that began to fall. So they lowered it back down to the ground and they covered it with a big tarp. Later that evening, the head monk went to make sure that the Buddha was okay, and he shined his flashlight under the tarp just to see what was going on. And as it reached the crack, he noticed a little gleam shining back. Thought that was strange, got chisel and hammer from the monastery and began to chip away at the clay, and others helped. And it turns out that after many hours of labor, what they uncovered was a solid gold statue of the Buddha, the largest in that part of Southeast Asia. And historians believe that several hundred years earlier, the Burmese army was about to invade Thailand. And so the Siamese monks wanted to make sure that the Buddha didn't get looted, so they covered it with plaster and clay. All of those monks got killed, but the Buddha survived. And what I love about the image of the golden Buddha is that each of us cover ourselves over to protect ourselves from injury, from the challenges, the greed and the aggression of our culture and what happens in our own families. So we have our egoic coverings, which is natural. And yet the suffering is we get identified with our coverings. We get identified with the ways we defend ourselves or present ourselves and our addictions and our accomplishments, and we forget the gold. And I think that perhaps the most powerful and beautiful message we offer to those we teach is that the gold is there and you can remember it, reconnect with it. I remember one of my most amazing mentors was my first therapist supervisor, and he was brilliant at seeing the patterns in people. He could see the plaster clay patterns, but even more, his brilliance was in being able to mirror the gold. And it's been true of every teacher that's impacted me. It hasn't been their dazzle or their charisma. There's been a quality of, in some way, helping me to trust who I am. And I see that over and over again in others when I hear what people are valuing from the teachings is a sense of, oh, I'm trusting what's here.